Estamos preparando também da Wii, estamos preparando. Kaya na, dating Real can be preparado. Kaya na, dating Real.
Hey! Welcome to U.S. History at the Movies. Walk the red carpet like the star that you are. That's right. Work it. You know it. You know your work.
Oh, okay.
Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
What is Pega playing?
Ryan knows what the carpet is. Ryan walks that carpet. Hey, welcome back to U.S. History at the Movies. Hey, welcome to U.S. History at the Movies. Walk that red carpet like the star that you are. Walk that red carpet like the star you are. Know your worth, Dallas Kelly. Let me smile. Hey, welcome to U.S. History at the Movies. Welcome to U.S. History at the Movies. Walk that red carpet like the star that you are. You gotta know your worth. You gotta sashay. Sashay.
We're gonna find out what we made on the other side.
Yeah, I don't know. Move in here. See what I do, you'll know. You just gotta sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, man. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Yeah, U.S. History at the Movies. It's so fun. Have fun. Like, we're gonna pour it.
Travel to what time?
No.
You said no?
You gotta go back.
This one don't even work.
Hi-yo. Leon, welcome to U.S. History at the Movies. Walk the red carpet like the star that you are. That's right. That's right. Hey, she's back. For a second ago at the red carpet. She knows. She knows her work.
I just did you?
Walk that red carpet like the star that you are. That's right.
You know, white shoulders on there, everybody. And you got my trouble.
JR, welcome to U.S. History at the Movies. Walk that red carpet like the star that you are. Oh yeah, work it. Take the pictures. Do it for the photographer. That's right. You know.
What's she at? She added me too. Who? Cat. She added me too. When I mention you, when I mention myself on your story, she added me. I don't know why she added me. Girl, leave me alone. I didn't see you want to be said.
Oh, have you ever been to a red carpet movie premiere before?
No.
Because if you haven't, first time for everything, and you're about to. So, real easy ask. Real easy ask. I'm going to ask that you put your phones away. Isn't that crazy? Now, so let's get a little business out of the way first, and then I'll explain the whole setup, the red carpet and everything. First, what I'm going to give you is your final. I don't know how many finals. I'm going to give you your final study guide. This is different than study guides in the past, okay? It doesn't have the pictures. It doesn't have like the witty statements and whatever. This is guiding your studying for if you have to take the final. I'm going to give it to everybody, but if you don't have to take the final, realistically, you could just be done with it, right? Throw it away. If you have to take the final, this is the type of studying that would help you out, okay? It focuses your studying. Tomorrow, we will do a full-on review. Wednesday in this class will be the exam, okay? And it's reverse block. So first block, you will come to your fourth block. You would take this final first thing. I've told you this before. Just going to make sure we're all on the same page. The final is on Illuminate. It is most likely, probably, questions you've seen before. Okay? Illuminate questions you've seen before. I absolutely, positively recommend you take it seriously. I can lead you to that water. I cannot force you to drink. But you should take the final seriously. It is a test grade. Think about it like this. We all had a pretty womp-womp first test grade, right? Womp-womp, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s kind of at best. I know, it hurt me to put it in the grade book. So if you come and take the final, and how about this? Even if you don't need to, you can still take it for your benefit. Even if you're exempt from it, you can take it. If it hurts you and you're exempt, I won't count it. If it helps you, obviously you just helped yourself. Now, if you have to take it, that's its own deal. Anybody have a question? So all that to say, Wednesday is our final exam. It's 20 questions, Illuminate. It's all comprehensive, and it's right in front of you. If you know what the study guide is talking about, you will know exactly what to be doing on the final exam. So any questions on that? I'll move on from there. Absences still count all the way through Wednesday. So if you're on the bubble of 5 or 3, whatever the case may be, don't be absent. But other than that, I've given you your page. I've given you what you need to know about whether you're taking it or not. I have that recorded. Don't not show up on the final day. That'd be like literally the worst thing imaginable, to not show up on the final day and just suck down to 0. Okay? Okay. Next questions, or rather questions. Closing that one out. Any questions?
Attendance stops on the 14th.
Huh?
Attendance stops on the 14th.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Huh? Don't worry about it. You go to your class. Oh,
You want to pray?
yeah. You better stay awake if you're going to practice. You better stay awake if you're going to practice. You won't go to practice if you don't stay awake. I'll talk Coach Gospel stuff. All right. What we're going to do now, this is a fun one. I'm asking you to simply do the right thing by being plugged in. Put your phones up. Pay attention. We are going to U.S. history at the movies in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Curtain. We have arrived. Here's how this is going to go down. What I'm doing is I'm going to share with you a whole bunch of movies, Hollywood movies, that connect to our class theme. Okay? Hopefully it'll be fun. It's designed to be fun. I hope you're going to have fun doing this with me. We can talk back and forth. What I'll do is I'll show you a movie poster. And then if you've seen the movie, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I saw that on Netflix last week. And I'm just going to ask you more about it. Even if you haven't seen the movie, and you can probably tell what it's about, like it's a World War II movie, I'm going to try to draw out of you what do you think our class terms are. So
we're not actually watching the movie.
No, we're not watching all these. We're talking about, hopefully it'll be like, man, I just got this whole list of movies that I want to watch over Christmas break. So we're going to roll with this for a while, okay? Try to get through all the movies I have listed, and we'll see what we got time left. Now, fellas.
Not sleep time, I promise.
You guys are killing me because I'm giving you my last effort to the last minute. I'm giving you all my big efforts. You will not go very far in life if you treat your superiors, your coaches, your pastors, your police officers like you're treating me right now. Okay? Make better decisions. And then, so the sheet that you have in front of you looks like this. On the left-hand side, just write the name of the movie. I put them all in yellow, and I've numbered them. Okay, so if you wonder what number are we on, what I have to write the name of the movie in yellow, and I've numbered them. On the other side, and I know it's a small amount of space, it doesn't have to be perfect.
All right, it's a fun note sheet just to keep track of what we talked about. Write down those class concepts that we talk about, okay? I think you'll start to see it flow after number 1, number 2, you'll get what we're doing. Here's why it matters to you. I'm making this a 100-point daily grade. Do it in class. Simply stay plugged in right now. Walk out of here with the easy 100-point daily grade. Don't mess this up, okay? It's an in-class assignment. You literally don't have to keep track of anything. Just give this to me at the end of class. It'll be a free 100 points. I do have a couple of honorable mentions that I'll throw in throughout. Just a couple of titles that I didn't full on give the whole class treatment to. So
And the brothers.
again, just a fun thing for you. This is designed to be fun. Keep track of the movies we talk about. Maybe over Christmas break, you'll be on Netflix and you'll see like, whoa, we just talked about that class, that movie. Maybe I want to watch it. So first one up, here we go. So all you have to do is sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Can we turn
Settled
off
in-
all the lights?
Settled into the. You want to turn off all the lights?
Yeah.
Let's see if we can still see our handwriting. Look at that strobe light in the background. Can we see? We good?
Yeah.
Taylor, are you good? You want to kill the bumping light?
No,
Well, you're not sitting right next to it. They are.
I was gonna sit right next to
Pretty
you.
trippy. Y'all good or not? Can you see? Okay, let's go. We're in the movie theater. What is on my screen? What is on my screen?
Pocahontas.
Did you know Pocahontas is the only Disney princess that is based on a real person? So yes, on my screen we have Pocahontas. There you have it. So for example, Pocahontas should be dang. I started the next one as number 1. Just go ahead and start Pocahontas. It's whatever. I messed my numbers up. My bad. Pocahontas. What class concepts do we see in Pocahontas?
John Law.
Different John. Rolfe and excellent. John Rolfe, John Smith. What is that first colony that Pocahontas was probably a part of? Jamestown, excellent. And then John Smith comes over with the Virginia Company. So this is just this is the example. I guess we'll just call this one the example, however you're choosing to write it. Pocahontas, and then you see the class concepts. Jamestown, John Rolfe, John Smith. Now, she actually married John Rolfe, even though Disney got that wrong. And then, of course, the big song is God, Gold, and Glory, and the Virginia Company. So, I know it's a cutesy one we've probably all seen as kids. But Pocahontas, take the history with a grain of salt. Pocahontas is a would fit into a U.S. history class in that regard. That's it. That's how we're gonna roll for all the movies we're gonna roll through. On my screen next, what is on my screen? It is Spooksville. Anybody like horror movies?
Yeah.
This is The Crucible. And you will see it's number 1. So I guess go ahead and kind of pick that up there or whatever. My bad. I
I put Pocahontas.
I messed up the numbering already. My bad.
Hey, I put Pocahontas in number 1.
It's fine. It's fine. I messed up the numbering. Just kind of go +1, whatever. The Crucible is actually a stage play. And in fact, a lot of times it's an ELA class topic. Ms. Rozier was saying that she's done it in ELA several times. What class topics would this fit in? You know what the big story is? Jose?
I said you say Crucible. It's like they say they got W-I in there.
Oh, it's spelled wrong.
Yeah, you spell it wrong.
Crucible. No, Crucible.
No,
No,
up there.
it's yellow.
You got a yellow.
Wow, I'm 0 for 2. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Crucible. You know what, Jose? Thanks for contributing. Crucible. It is about the Salem witch trials. Okay, this movie is about the Salem witch trials. So what we see is the Puritan culture, the religious Great Awakening. Maybe you remember in class we went around and called each other witches, when in fact no one was actually a witch. Yeah, that's gonna bug me enough. I gotta fix it right away. How about that?
American Horror Story. I don't even know because I think
Oh God.
So the Crucible, it is on the horror side of things, right? The main actor in it is named Daniel Day-Lewis, and he is known for a particular type of acting. It's called method acting. Does anybody know what that is? Method acting, anybody? Is when you go all in on your character for the entire time that you're filming. Like you don't break character. You don't come out of costume. You don't you don't become yourself again. You stay the character the whole time. So when he was filming this, he was his character from the beginning of practice on through the beginning of filming all the way until they said wrap. He was his character 24/7. And some people think that produces really good performances because you're literally living out your character. We're going to see Daniel Day-Lewis again on a different movie. I'll be sure to point him out to you. Next up is on my screen. Oh, yes. What is it?
Patriot.
The Patriot. This is the reason Mr. Swanson joined the military. When the movie came out,
9/11.
when the movie came out in the year 2000, which is before 9/11, I got very inspired to want to serve. And obviously there's a lot of other things that go with that, but really in the end, it was the Patriot that kind of gave me the original inspiration to want to be in the military. What are some big class themes we would see in the Patriot? What's the time period?
French and Indian War.
Yeah, you're right, because Benjamin Martin fought in the French and Indian War. Which war is it actually a part of? The American Revolution. Thank you. Right? You can see the flag with the 13 stars in a circle, and he's fighting the redcoats. So I'll just go ahead and go here. We see the colonies. We see, obviously, he's called the Patriot, so there's patriots. But the people who maybe didn't want to go to rebellion, what were they called? Loyalists. Yeah. So we see their neighbors. We've been watching this movie in class. We see their neighbors who are maybe still loyal to the crown. They're called loyalists.
My girlfriend in her class watched that movie last Friday.
Watched The Patriot in middle school.
Oh.
We see the we see the main British character is Lord Cornwallis, and that's a real character. And then we also see the French support. Now, the Patriot is kind of loosely based on history. The character names don't really follow real characters, but they are based on real things, such as Marquis de Lafayette. He's represented in the one French character in the movie. So that's probably the longest list that I'll have for any single movie because it's such a great movie and it has all the things in it. Next up on my screen, we have, are you sitting back? Are you relaxed? You enjoying the show?
No.
Okay, good. Next up on my screen is not throwing away my shot. No, I'm not throwing away my shot. What is it?
Hamilton.
Hamilton. Yeah. So what class themes do we see in Hamilton?
A bunch of singing.
The Constitution, the authoring of the Constitution. What big characters would we see?
George Washington.
George Washington.
Abraham Lincoln.
Nope, not that
I'm
one.
gonna be real. I'm not big on these plays.
That's fine. So JR makes a great point. Hamilton is a Broadway play, but it has been videoed, and it is, you could kind of call it a movie because it streams on Disney Plus. So, but JR, you make a great point. It is a Broadway play. Here's a couple more. We're coming on the end of the American Revolution, feeds into the New Republic and the Constitution. Your big three: Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. I wouldn't really call them political parties, but what were the two different thoughts at the time?
I don't know.
Two different people groups. Federalists and anti-federalists. Yeah. So Hamilton is actually a very, very well-written production. We think about Shakespeare and he's from the 1600s. Well, guess what? This is modern masterpiece. This is a modern masterpiece. And yeah, we're gonna have to get some time away from the original writing of it for people to be like, oh, that is one of the classics. But if you actually read some of these rap battles, now when they say them so fast, and it might be hard to catch the words. But if you were to slow it down or look at the closed captioning or just actually read the text, some of these rap battles and some of these songs are incredibly well written. They share true history, good history, and it's a unique way to show the battle between Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson. How does George Washington fit into that and all that kind of stuff. All right, this is our first honorable mentions. So I'm not really trying to grade your honorable mentions. If you choose to write them down or not, that's fine. TV series called Turn, Washington Spies. And it is based on a book called Washington's Secret Six. It is about a spy ring that really helped the Patriots win the American Revolution. And in this TV series, it's 4 seasons long. It's pretty historically accurate. Now, at some points, they have to take some artistic licenses and change up how a couple of the characters behaved and such like that. But the reason I give it an honorable mention is because it kind of goes outside of our class just a little bit. It really focuses on Benedict Arnold.
Do we put both of them together?
However you choose to write it. They're two different TV series. Right now I'm talking about Turn. Right, there's not a lot of have to on this, guys. I'm just kind of looking for your effort. It seems like you guys are doing good. So mostly I just want to have a fun conversation about movies. Turn, it focuses on Benedict Arnold. Benedict Arnold is known as what?
Spy.
A traitor, which is sometimes called a turncoat because he turned his coat from blue to red. Literally a turncoat. So anyway, Turn is an incredible series. The book, of course, tells the true story. Great TV series. I think it's on Netflix. Other one, Sons of Liberty. It's like a 3-episode limited series. And then from HBO, John Adams. A little bit slower paced TV series here, but John Adams pretty good as well. Those are honorable mentions. Next up on my screen is anybody recognize what that is? So we have some Plains Indians. I like that. French and Indian would be a fair guess. We clearly have some Native Americans. Who's the white man? Anybody know? Born on a mountain in Tennessee, greatest man in the land of the free.
It's the dude that wrestled snakes.
Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier. Yeah, so
It's the dude that choked the snake.
this is a Disney movie. It does come from the Walt Disney Company. It's called Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier. Now, let's connect it to class. What type of class concepts do you think we see in this movie?
The Indians.
Yeah, Plains Indians, Indian Wars, absolutely. What president was really involved with Indians?
Jackson.
Andrew Jackson is right. Andrew Jackson is a character in this movie. And historically speaking, Davy Crockett did interact with Andrew Jackson. And this movie shows Andrew Jackson as a pretty large part of the movie, both in the military and as president, and it shows his dealings with the Indians. And then this movie in particular wraps up with Davy Crockett's history at the Alamo. He goes to Texas, he fights, and he dies actually at the Alamo. This was one of my favorite movies growing up. It was a little bit older. When I was a kid, it was still an old movie, and of course now it's a really old movie, but I do have it on DVD. And I love this version of the Davy Crockett movie. And the song that comes with it, and just the whole story of Davy Crockett. So it is also super connected to U.S. history in this fashion. Next up on my screen is, looks like the same fella. What movie could this be? Daniel Boone would be an alternate guess would be Daniel Boone because he was also known for the raccoon hat. That's true. Can anybody tell who the actor is? No. Your grandparents not watch westerns like my father-in-law does? That is the Duke. Say it. John Wayne. Yeah, John Wayne is the actor, and I'm being a little sarcastic because it is Davy Crockett as well, but it's John Wayne portraying the Alamo. So the first movie was Davy Crockett. The second one I'm showing you is the Alamo, number 6, I guess for you guys, number 6, the Alamo. And the first movie, I don't know what year it came out, but it's obviously older. The movie on top, by the same name, The Alamo, comes out in the year 2004, and it has Billy Bob Thornton and Dennis Quaid. So kind of an update to the same story. Where was The Alamo? Texas, yeah. So it was a part of the War of Texas Independence and connected to class, kind of at a bigger level, Manifest Destiny, right? How do we stretch across the country? Ultimately, we gobble up Texas, and that is all a part of Manifest Destiny. So the newer version of the Alamo I really like. I'll be honest, I haven't seen the older version, but of course, John Wayne is a classic actor. And another example of how Hollywood connects with U.S. history. Moving on to an honorable mention. This is a History Channel series called Texas Rising. And actually, if you were in my world history class last year, I showed you a portion of this. Whenever we did that part where they read the letter from William Travis in the Alamo, and General Santa Anna, he's reading the letter and then he crumples it up. Remember that? He's talking about, victory or death. That comes from this TV series, Texas Rising. So this series kind of takes the Alamo and goes past it for how Texas became independent. Texas Rising, honorable mention. Again, a lot of this stuff's available on Amazon Prime, some Disney Plus, some Netflix, all that kind of stuff. And then sometimes just flat out YouTube. Sometimes you can just YouTube this stuff and it's available for free on YouTube. Next up on my screen is, let me take the time to say to the room that this is a grade, okay? So I appreciate you having a conversation with me, and I'm also trying to give you a freebie just for paying attention. Next up on my screen is Bayonets! The movie Gettysburg. Thank you. Gettysburg is an incredibly accurate movie. Now, yeah, anytime Hollywood's involved, you gotta, there's always a bit of a cost to the historical accuracy. But Gettysburg does a pretty good job of keeping it right. What war are we talking about? Civil War. Okay. What do you think a big figure that is in this movie? Commander of the Confederate Army in particular.
Stonewall.
Stonewall is in it. This is true. No, sorry. Stonewall is not, because he died before Gettysburg. So Stonewall's in a different movie I'll tell you about. Who's the other big leader of the Confederate Army? Huh? No. The other one. There you go, Robert E. Lee. And he's actually not on the poster there. Maybe I should pick a different poster. But Robert E. Lee is played by Martin Sheen, an A-list actor, right? All these movies have A-listers. These aren't crappy movies that you don't really want to watch. These are all big movies with big name actors.
What's the mini ball?
I think it just goes to show. I'll tell you something. I think it goes to show that U.S. history makes the best movies. You don't see any math department movies up here, right? You don't see any science department movies up here. And then, in fact, ELA very often copies U.S. history texts for that same reason. Mini ball kind of represents the technology of the war. It was the more lethal bullet that caused a lot of people to die in the Civil War.
And it had grooves.
It had grooves. Yeah, it was rifled. Moving on to what is on my screen now. Daniel Day-Lewis. I knew that you were going to say that. Daniel Day-Lewis. What kind of an actor is he? Remember, I just said it. He's called method acting, where you go all in. You act like your character the whole time. So he is Abraham Lincoln. The movie is called Lincoln. And can you imagine being Abraham Lincoln for like 6 months?
That movie just came out not too long.
2014 or so.
Yeah.
It's a little bit older, but yeah, it's on the more recent side. Can you imagine being Abraham Lincoln for like 6 months? Acting like Lincoln, talking like Lincoln, dressing like Lincoln. That's what he did to prepare for this role, which is why it's considered such a good film. Obviously, it comes off the Civil War. What do you think some of the themes in the movie would be for what we know about Abraham Lincoln? Slavery, Emancipation Proclamation.
Probably talks about his mom and how she got sick.
Okay, maybe. Yeah, family background, whatever. Emancipation Proclamation leads to what amendment?
I mean, you got to say the best
13th
stuff.
Amendment. There you go. So all of that. I'll be honest. I can't remember if this movie ends with his assassination or not, because it focuses on his life. So I really can't remember if the movie ends with his being assassinated or not. It is based off of a book, which I do not have because I have it on my Kindle, so I don't have a physical copy of it. The book is called Team of Rivals. Why do you think that the book would be called Team of Rivals? How does that fit with Lincoln?
Because he had people that hated him.
That's right. But what were they on?
The Southern side.
No. He built a team out of people who were previously his competitors. And you might say they hated him. They ran against him in politics. They thought that they would be the better president. But when he got elected president, he said, hey, William Stewart, come be my Secretary of State. Hey, Mr. Stanton, come be my Secretary of War.
He
right?
killed him with kindness.
His previous rivals, he brought them onto the same team, killed them with kindness. I think that's a great way to put it, JR. And so the book's fat, y'all. It's like 900 pages. But it leads to.
I'm not the person that made that book.
Yeah, that's why I'm showing you all the movies, because I know you're not going to read 900-page books. Anyway, a couple of honorable mentions from the Civil War. There's so many from the Civil War, right? So I got to go into honorable mentions. Gods and Generals is actually the story before Gettysburg at this 2 feature, right? Because Gettysburg is the first movie that comes out, but then
Mr. Swanson, can I see the Band McElroy, please?
honor way. Then they make the pre-story, which actually has Stonewall Jackson right before he gets killed, and it's called Gods and Generals. So that's like a double-double in terms of the showing the story of the Civil War. Free State of Jones, we actually watched that, so I'm not going to spend any more time talking about that one. Glory is about an all-black unit fighting for the North.
Mr. Watson, can I say David Dixon in the front?
On his way. And then I think I mentioned The Conspirator when we were talking about Lincoln's assassination. Really fascinating story. I actually just finished this book called Manhunt, which is about Lincoln's the hunt for Lincoln's assassin, John Wilkes Booth. The book was great. I really enjoyed reading it. Of course, you know all my books are available to you if you want to borrow them. Conspirator talks about all the people that were involved in trying to assassinate Lincoln, and it ends up with them hanging at the end of a rope because that's what happened to them. Finally, not finally, Grant. Grant is a History Channel series, and finally, this movie called Harriet. I haven't seen this one, and I'll tell you if I
Oh,
haven't.
it's so good.
Yeah, is it good?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
good.
I'll tell you if I haven't seen a movie, because I don't want to
I
recommend
love
something.
it.
That
I watched this movie 1,000 times.
Okay. What do you know? Is it on Hulu or something like that?
No, I watched it.
I'll look it up. I'll have to look it up.
It's on Prime Video.
Prime Video. I grow with you guys, right? I learn right alongside you guys, so I appreciate the recommendation. I will go check out Harriet over Christmas break. Next up on my screen is New Era. What are we looking at? 19-something. World War One. Yep, and the movie is called 1917. So Leon, you were close in the right bracket. We got World War One. If we're watching a movie about World War One, what do you think we're gonna see?
Have you watched this movie?
I have.
Is it any good?
It is.
I don't want to watch it.
It is. Well, JR, what themes do you think we would see in this movie? Trench warfare, absolutely. And I'll just tell you, for what I have on here, the movie itself doesn't really talk about the peace plan. It doesn't. But anytime we think about World War One, we got to think about Wilson's 14-point peace plan, the Treaty of Versailles, and ultimately how it's set up for World War II. So the movie itself doesn't necessarily talk about that, but as a historian, you can think that's what comes next. Something really unique and artistic about this movie. Do you remember what it was? I think I kind of told you earlier this year.
I don't know. I did.
But we was facing-
Yeah.
That's right. They shoot it as a single scene. And, you know, sometimes they like fade to black and then come right back in. But it's like you're watching a single scene unfold in front of you. That's what makes it really unique. Some really artistic camera shots. And then especially as you're kind of snaking through the trenches and the bombs are going up around you. Really amazing photography. That's what makes this kind of a really unique story. So 1917, World War One. Kind of a same theme on my screen now is, anybody know?
There's a horse.
War horse, and I'll just let you kind of put ditto marks, like same marks for the whatever you're going to write there, because it's pretty much the same. But war horse is kind of a unique perspective because it tells you the story through the horse, and it's kind of weird because sometimes like you're hearing the horse's thoughts. And it's like, wow, is the animal talking or whatever? But it's just kind of a creative way to show how animals were on the front lines of World War One as well. So, War Horse, another World War One movie. On my screen now, I'll tell you, we have an intermission built into the class, just like you would have an intermission in a theater. Our intermission will be when we take our break. So hang in there. We're almost at the intermission. This is the meme. But what's the movie?
I can't remember the movie I watched.
It's The
What
Great
celebration?
Gatsby. The Great Gatsby, right? So Leonardo DiCaprio, he does the meme thing, right? Which a lot of you guys send to each other as GIFs or whatever. But the movie itself is The Great Gatsby. This is a very classic book by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and that's another one of those things you might do in ELA. But in terms of U.S. history, what themes do we see in The Great Gatsby? Roaring 20s, absolutely. Are we drinking or not? Are we drinking or not?
No.
We're not, which means what are we dealing with?
Bootlegger.
Prohibition, bootleggers,
What's that word that
speakeasies.
start with a T?
Temperance,
Oh yeah.
a little bit into the temperance movement so actually I should say they are drinking, which means that they have to do bootlegging and speakeasies and such like that. So the bigger story is, it's a little bit more artistic and not exactly related to history, but the time period you're seeing is kind of shows the Roaring 20s pretty well. Yeah.
I know we're talking about movies and everything,
Hands.
but
You're about to get us off topic.
Always.
There's this game for like PS4 and Xbox, and it's called Mafia 3,
Okay.
and it talks about that kind of stuff like Betsy DeGaspe's and everything. It talks about segregation.
Okay.
What is it? Speak things.
Speak easy.
Yeah, those
Right.
things.
Separate but equal kind of stuff because they're segregated.
Yeah.
That's good. You know,
And it
I
talks about soup kitchens and stuff like that.
okay, and we saw that the mobsters would give out food and kind of earn the affections of people. I love it when you guys bring up stuff like that, right? I'm not a video gamer.
It's an older game.
I'm not a video gamer. I don't know all the video game stuff.
Ring.
But you guys, and you know what, JR, you probably understand the game better because you sat through this class, right? Before you're just playing the game, hitting the buttons.
I think.
But now that you understand it's a speakeasy, it's a soup kitchen run by Al Capone or whatever, we've already talked about it in class. I think you probably understand the game better. Don't you think?
Yeah, it came out in like 2013.
Okay. Good.
Same time GTA did.
See, that is growth. That is the growing that I hope that you would get out of this class. So I thank you for sharing that story.
Yes.
Next on my screen is, let's look at this quote here. I doubt you know this movie, but I want you to catch the quote. We do not want to be law breakers. We want to be law makers. What kind of a woman is she? What is she fighting for? Women's right to vote. That's right. So the movie's called The Suffragette. And what we would see are leading suffragettes like Susan B. Anthony, the women's right to vote, which is the 19th Amendment. I haven't seen this movie either. Okay, there's very few on this list I haven't seen. But if you're interested in the women's rights movement, Suffragette would be a movie you could watch. And with that, we've arrived at our intermission. So I'll give you a chance to write that down, and then we will go take our intermission break. See, I told you I had a break built in. All right, let's walk the short way. Get your whatever you need to do.
tell about it on the show. I'm gonna tell him more. They want to do this. Variety. They talking about home.
Ron, forgive me.
All right.
She was saying something about in the gym that and she was like, how you gonna show him?
What in the world?
Oh, God, he is there.
You know that white boy that was up there with Johnny?
I didn't hear nothing.
But
She was like, how you gonna show him?
You smart the coach.
oh, good.
Wait, take a seat.
Mom.
I swear to God.
It was just being good too.
It was either him or
Stop
Johnny.
doing that. It's inappropriate.
But he showed him.
You heard that?
I don't know. I ain't see it.
I'm gonna ask him.
Zariah.
She had it.
Zariah, it's like this. Raya, it's like this.
How would you know?
I'm just lying. That's what I heard somebody say.
Some saying. Oh my gosh. People are wild. Hey, Cameron. Oh, gosh.
Say, why you want to come to the party yesterday?
What part?
Not yesterday, but the day before yesterday.
You know about it.
I ain't nobody.
Why you ain't tell that boy?
I would tell nobody shit.
You somehow Larry found
I
out.
don't shirk you. I'm cake.
Cake? It's some other.
I put that shit out.
No, you did.
Oh. Oh, my bad. That's my phone.
I'm gonna cut it off.
I should teach
For real. God forgive me. The swap, I didn't mean that. If you watch the video, you got it. I'm gonna get in trouble.
Hey, anybody know where Jose and Christian are?
No.
Oh.
That's it, thank
You're probably with that white lady.
Why
That
you had to
was
say it
alright.
like
I mean,
that?
Caucasian. God, we Caucasian. I mean,
My sister tried to argue with me. She was white. So she tried to argue with me and tell me that Caucasian.
All right. Thumbs up. We're gonna keep driving. Keep driving. Are we enjoying this?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
gonna go
Cool.
home and watch these movies.
That's right. That's what I'm hoping for. I want to watch these movies. On my screen next is only World War II just started. We just watched this movie,
Pearl Harbor.
and it is Pearl Harbor. That means what theater of the war? What theater of the war would it be from? Theater of World War II.
Pacific.
That's right, the Pacific Theater, and obviously World War II. I already said that. So we watched most of this. We didn't really we didn't do the pre-story, but we picked it up right when the attack started happening. It is this is one of those movies where critics say the lovey-dovey story is really annoying, but the attack on Pearl Harbor is all right. So it's kind of take.
Please,
Whose phone is this?
JR.
Well,
don't stop.
Y'all in middle school text them.
All right, that's Pearl Harbor. On my screen next is this one's a little bit maybe less known. Anybody recognize it based off the screen?
Is it that internment count?
Yeah,
It look like it.
It is so it's a prisoner of war camp, not an internment camp, but a prisoner of war camp. Actually,
That man out.
the guard is Japanese. The man being punched, he's an American soldier, so he's a prisoner of war. This is from a book and movie called Unbroken. And I have the book here. The movie's by the same name, Unbroken. It is a story, definitely from the Pacific Theater of the War, See a little bit of the island hopping, right? I'm trying to connect it to our class. And
How
then
are you on 13?
what we re-
21.
what we really see is, hey, as long as you're taking notes, thank you, right? That's what I'm looking for, that you're taking notes. What we really see in this story is the greatest generation of World War II veterans. They really saved the country. The main character in it is one of those. His name is Louis Zamprini. I'm going to give you the synopsis here. His name is Louis Zamprini. He is a former Olympic runner. He actually runs in the 1936 Olympics, which are in Germany. Isn't that ironic? They're in Hitler's Germany. But when the war breaks out, he becomes a pilot. His airplane is shot down over the water, over the Pacific Ocean. He gets stuck in a raft, which is the picture you see in the middle. He's in the raft for 40 plus days. I can't remember the exact number of
How he
days.
survived?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? They had very little water. They had to catch rainwater. They had to catch dew. They had to catch fish literally out of the raft.
What's dew?
Dew, like the water that is on in the mornings. Dew, D-E-W.
Light from humidity.
Yeah, from humidity. That's good. So it's really a miracle that they survived in the first place. When they got rescued, guess who rescued them?
Yeah.
The Japanese. That's right. So they were not really rescued. They were put right into a prison camp. Long story short, he has a very, very, very difficult prison camp experience. He gets beat a lot. He gets abused a lot. But when the Americans win the war, he is freed. He is alive. And he kind of has the rest of his story. Hey, you two, where were you? The restroom. Which one?
The one down there.
Oh, it was in a.
Okay, how about this? Sit outside my room. You don't want to be here, you're not going to be here. Sit outside my room, leave your phone inside.
They get your
Yeah, leave your phone inside. No. Leave it right there. Okay. Oh, yeah, like not in your pocket.
They don't even want to be in
You
here.
don't want to be in my class? You're not going to be in my class?
Hey.
He said right.
Yeah, listen, trying to be brave.
Not amused. All right. So anyway, he goes on to become pretty, important, productive member of society. He overcomes his difficulties. The director of this movie is a big A-lister. You know who it is? Angelina Jolie. Right? Angelina Jolie is the director of this movie. So really powerful movie. I have the book, of course. You're always welcome to borrow my stuff. Unbroken is the next movie. And there's a book right there. Next on my screen is, well, we did watch this one. You recognize it? Saving Private Ryan. That's right. Now, this is not the scene we watched. This is kind of the very end scene. But we watched the opening scene, which is depicting what? D-Day. Yes, D-Day is also known as, AKA,
No.
no.
No. Battle of.
What type of invasion? Where? Normandy. Yeah, D-Day, AKA the Normandy invasion. Obviously, it's about the European theater of the war, and that the big enemy in Europe is? Who's the enemy in Europe? Hitler, Nazi Germany. Yeah. So, Saving Private Ryan, it pains me to say it's a very inaccurate story because it's not actually about anything that happened in the war, but what we see is very accurate. Uniforms, fighting, strategy, tanks, planes, bridges, all that kind of stuff is very accurate. It's just that the guys who are going on this mission, that's kind of a made-up story, not exactly anything that has specifically happened in history. A couple of honorable mentions. World War II, you can imagine there's a lot of movies. Midway, movie about the turning point of the Pacific. Hacksaw Ridge is a very powerful story about an individual soldier who saved about 70 of his friends. The cool part of the story, the crazy part of the story, is that he was a conscientious objector. That means he did not carry a weapon. When he got drafted, he says, I do not want to take lives, I want to save them. So he became a medic, which is why you see the Red Cross there. And in the war, he did not carry a weapon. Even though he was being shot at, he did not carry a weapon. But when they needed him, when he was needed, and a lot of people made fun of him for that, right? He was teased a lot, ribbed, kind of even beat down by his friends, or not his friends, by his platoon. So like, man, you're not even going to help us if you're not carrying a weapon. Well, when they needed him, he carried 70 of them to safety and saved their lives. So pretty powerful story there.
Without a weapon.
What's that?
With or without a weapon.
Without a weapon. Without a weapon. The actor in this movie is Andrew Garfield, who's maybe the actor in this movie is Andrew Garfield, who's maybe more known as who? Spider-Man. That's right. Actor in this movie is the Spider-Man actor, Andrew Garfield. A couple of others, Patton and Flags of Our Fathers. This is the Nicolas Cage combo, Wind Talkers, and then the USS Indianapolis. We talked about the Indianapolis, also a book. I intend to read this book over Christmas break. I'm going to finally get to it. Wind Talkers is a real powerful movie because they use Native Americans, Navajos, as code talkers. Instead of creating a whole brand new code, they just use the American military. We use the Navajo code or Navajo language as a code. These men can talk to each other because it's their native language, but it's such a complex language that the Japanese can never figure out how to crack it. And that's kind of what that movie is about, how the Navajo code talkers were used. And then, of course, the seminal, the iconic, the ultimate about the European theater, there's the miniseries Band of Brothers. And about the Pacific theater, there's the miniseries called The Pacific. So these are 10 episodes each, kind of tells a longer version of the story. They're both books as well. But these two miniseries are definitely like the ultimate depiction of World War II in terms of a film. Whew, my voice be struggling tonight, I bet. Next up on my screen is, the Korean War doesn't get much love, but we do get.
What is that?
Anybody?
The best TV show.
Anybody watch this with their grandparents? Like great-grandparents? What is it, Jose?
MASH.
MASH, yeah, TV show called MASH.
Oh.
It's about the Korean War. Now, it's a comedy. MASH is supposed to be funny, but there are some deep perspectives to it about communism, about the 38th parallel, about a police action instead of a war. And then what they actually are, MASH is an acronym. MASH, does anybody know what it stands for?
No.
Jose?
Surgical Hospital.
Say it again.
Mobile Army Surgical.
Bro, you got it. Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. So they are a hospital. They're doctors, and they, they kind of move along with the front lines. That's, part of the story. That's why it's called MASH. So kind of a little extra for the Korean War there. Next on my screen is, we're kind of stepping into the modern era with who? Martin Luther King Jr. The movie is called Selma, and it is obviously.
I'm sorry.
What'd you say?
They tried him.
I
I mean,
That's what he looks like.
at first it looked like him, but right now,
yeah, no.
Okay, whatever. That's part of being a movie critic, right? You get to say, you know what? I said this to somebody in the hallway. In order to point out what's wrong, you do have to know what's right. So if you don't know the history in the first place, you can never really point out what's wrong. So it's good that you guys are able to say, hey, I've studied Martin Luther King Jr. I've looked at his pictures. I know what he was about. I've heard his voice. And, whether you think it's whatever your opinion is, that's fine. Selma, obviously it's about civil rights, face of the civil rights, Martin Luther King Jr. In this movie, we see the KKK, we see Jim Crow laws, we see segregation, and of course you see, Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream and how it changes the world. That just means you like my movie. All right, I am moving on. Next on my screen is anybody? Chadwick Boseman in the movie 42. Now, we didn't talk about baseball. We didn't talk about Jackie Robinson. What kind of a class theme could fit into this movie? Segregation. Essentially, it is separate but equal, what we see on the movie. And obviously, that fits into civil rights. So, all that to say, even the fun movies like sports, right? It doesn't have to be a history movie only to still fit into history. And 42 is one of those. Keeping with the sports theme, next on my screen is Do You Believe in Miracles? Movie called Miracle. Sports movie. How in the world is this about U.S. history?
That movie's about hockey. Yeah.
Movie's about hockey. What time period does it come from?
60s.
Just like hockey is cold.
Cold.
Yeah, because what we see in the movie is a hockey game from between the United States and the USSR. It is at the height of the Cold War, But the good thing is we're playing hockey with each other instead of bombing each other. It's another one of those competitions where tensions are high. We want to win, but the good thing is we're playing hockey with each other, not bombing each other. And in our case, we win the game. So the Russians were supposed to win the game. They were supposedly the better hockey team, bigger, badder, stronger, whatever. But in the end, it's a miracle that we do win the game. It's a Disney movie. It's pretty good. Got a lot of leadership themes to it as well. And it relates to history because it comes from the Cold War time. Next up on my screen is, I'll just move on, 13 Days. 13 Days refers to what? The Cuban Missile Crisis. So again, the Cold War. The president is JFK, and the movie is specifically about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Little bit of a heavier movie, kind of really gets into the politics of it. But if you've ever been, really curious about the Cuban Missile Crisis, it's a perfect movie for that. I have watched 13 Hours. That one as well. That's a good one. It's recent history. Moving into the honorable mentions for this time period, we have a movie called JFK. We have a movie called Jackie. It's about each of them. So Jackie gets her own movie. A-lister Natalie Portman portraying Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. And then JFK. JFK, the movie, is a little bit more of a mystery. It's for after he died. The character you see on the screen there, he's actually a lawyer who's trying to uncover some of the truth, the so-called conspiracy. So the JFK movie, got to take it with a grain of salt because it is all about the conspiracy, but it's pretty interesting to consider what they are saying. And I do believe I mentioned this in class. This is a series called 11/22/63, based on a book by Stephen King. It is the fattest book I've ever read. I think the book is like 1,100 pages, but it's a fantastic story. And of course, they get a whole mini-series.
The whole book.
It's the fattest book I've ever read. Like Stephen King writes a book, right?
It must have been good for you to read that whole book.
It was a good book, right? Now, the story definitely goes away from the reality because there's time travel involved. Obviously not true, but the time traveler, the character who's time traveling, there is so much history involved in what he's observing that it makes it I think it makes it a history type of a story. So on Hulu, and then of course the book is by Stephen King. Next on my screen is Hidden Figures. Well done. I've heard that the math classes have watched this before. Is that any of you?
No.
I heard that Mr. Gerard's class watched it one time. Why would you watch this class? Why would you watch this movie in math class?
Because they have a lot of math to do with it.
That's exactly right. Because these ladies were involved in the space race, and NASA, and what they were doing was math.
Do I have to keep completing the right
Just- If you got a full page, I'm good with it. Right? Thank you for participating.
I want to grab 5 for this.
And then really, you can grab civil rights as well because they're African American. They were treated poorly. They were not treated equally to the white people in the movie. So there's definitely a bit of a civil rights struggle involved in the movie as well. I'm glad that you are familiar with this movie. Next on my screen, Houston, we have a problem, and this is the movie Apollo 13. Now, Apollo 13, what would it relate to? Putting a man on the moon, landing on the moon. This is not the mission that landed on the moon.
I thought that was Apollo's,
11. The mission that landed on the moon is Apollo 11. And actually, there's not a perfect movie about Apollo 11. I'm kind of surprised that there's not a really classic Hollywood hit about Neil Armstrong and Apollo 11, but there's not. We do have Apollo 13. Apollo 13, unfortunately, did not land on the moon because there was a mishap in space. Okay, part of their spaceship broke in the middle of space. Bad place to have a mishap, right? And the movie is about how they came home. It's really a miracle that they did not die in space. It's a miracle that their spaceship came home, and that's what the whole movie is about. You got some big A-listers there. We got Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon on the left, Bill Paxton on the right. That's Tom Hanks in the middle. But of course, they are depicting real people, and here is the real people. How do you think they did? Yeah, they don't really look like the real people, but you can't always get it just right. But I want to point out, in so many of these movies, obviously with Martin Luther King Jr., Hidden Figures, all right, I could have showed the real pictures there. But in so many of these movies, we are depicting real people. Like, let's not get caught up into the Hollywood side of it. let's remember that we are literally showing real people as well. Next up on my screen is, what era do we think we're looking at? We are going mostly in order. Vietnam War, okay. What is, JR, what do you know to be a really good Vietnam movie? Got any guesses? I'm kind of relying on you. No? Okay. We Were Soldiers. Mel Gibson, here he is again. We first saw him in the American Revolution with The Patriot, and now we have Mel Gibson in We Were Soldiers. Obviously, the Vietnam War. This movie does get into the politics a little bit, so we see President Johnson. And, I'm not sure if the movie itself really says the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, but we can know from class that the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution kind of fits the theme of the Vietnam War. Another example of where he's depicting a real person. The person he's depicting is named Colonel Hal Moore. This movie, this real story, actually, I should say, starts at Fort Benning, Georgia. So in Columbus, Georgia, this unit started in Columbus, Georgia, Fort Benning. Of course, they go to Vietnam, they return to Fort Benning. And because of that, a lot of the movie got filmed on Fort Benning. The opening scenes before the unit goes to war, they filmed it right on Fort Benning. So it got filmed, obviously, in Georgia. And in fact, this is extra for you. There's kind of some, there's conversation right now about renaming Fort Benning, because Benning is actually a Confederate name. So the Army is talking about renaming posts that are related to the Confederate soldiers. And one of the leading candidates is to rename it Fort Moore for Hal Moore. So if you hear the name of Fort Benning change in the future, and if it's Moore, it's related to this guy right here. Actually, not that guy, because that's Mel Gibson. It's related to that guy. How'd they do? A little closer.
They did good.
Right, I was a little closer. I've read a lot about Hal Moore, the real person. I've read the book. This is a book as well, and I don't know where my copy is. I went through all my boxes last night. I couldn't find it. But I've read the book that is about this movie. Really good story on leadership. Really amazing story about how Moore did a lot of difficult things trying to lead his men in Vietnam, and he's definitely a worthy leader. It'd be really awesome if they named the post, renamed Fort Benning after him. Honorable mention for Vietnam. Don't necessarily need to write this down. This is the movie Platoon. And, I could have picked a lot of Vietnam movies. There's a lot of them out there. But I picked this one in particular because it's a real crossover into the war at home, right? Platoon really gets into people's discontentment with the war, and it follows this character. He comes from college. Why are we fighting this war? Can't we just go home? All this kind of stuff. So Platoon really gets into those bigger themes, the war on TV, not trusting our politicians, all that kind of stuff. The tagline for the movie, it says it right there, the first casualty of war is innocence. And that's true, guys. War is hell. If you go to war innocent, you're going to come home hurt and broken because war is hell. Next on my screen is, I did mention this one in class, but it's kind of hard to tell. Can you tell what that is? This is Argo related to the Iranian hostage crisis.
So it got something to do with 9/11.
Nope, not 9/11. 1979, the Iranian hostage crisis. And actually, like most of these, this started out as a book. The book is called Master of Disguise, and you can see the man there. His name is Antonio Mendez. So Ben Affleck to Antonio Mendez, how'd they do? For Ben Affleck not being Hispanic, I think they did all right. I mean, I guess he's not the perfect actor because he's not Hispanic. But the movie's really good. It's really suspenseful. It's really interesting how they got some of these people out of Iran. These individuals were not in the hostage situation, but they also couldn't walk around freely because if they had showed their faces, they would have been snatched up. So the movie is all about how they got them out of Iran. And then, of course, the bigger hostage crisis is going on as well. JR, was that a hand?
No, sir.
All right, we're driving towards the end here. Next up on my screen is, JR, tell me. Bro, are you for real? As Jake Gyllenhaal in Jarhead.
Oh, I've seen
And Jarhead is a nickname for Marines, so I'm exceptionally disappointed that JR didn't get that.
Actually, the one I've seen had nothing that they didn't have anything.
There's a Jarhead 2 and 3 now, and those are trash. Those are trash
It
movies.
really was trash. It was
Anyway, Jarhead original. I don't even know about 2 and 3. I didn't even know those were things till I was Googling this. Jarhead the original is about the Persian Gulf War. A lot of times that's called Desert Storm, the war in Iraq. It obviously gets to President George H.W. Bush. And it's a really raw story about a young man going to war, seeing a lot of bad things, which is what most war stories are about. But definitely like the biggest movie about the Persian Gulf War. Next up on my screen is, this is a TV series called The West Wing, and it is based on the Clinton administration. It's modeled after the Clinton administration. Now, not identical, okay? Not everything you see in this TV series. It's 7 seasons long, okay? You kind of literally follow the whole presidency because 7 years is almost 8 years. It's basically like the whole presidency. In the middle of the series, there is an impeachment trial. So that's where it kind of starts to model after the Clinton administration. Not the same thing. It's not a sex scandal or anything like that. But the impeachment process being shown on the TV series kind of brought up the themes of the Clinton administration, and there's some strong connections there. Very government based as well. The conversation is like way up here, so you got to like really pay attention to see what's going on. Really good TV series though. Next up, we're getting spicy now. Getting current. Who is that? Monica Lewinsky. So I'm giving you 2 here actually.
That's a pervert.
These are both modeled after the Clinton administration. The movie's called Primary Colors, and then a TV series called Impeachment. You know what? Just pick one to write it down. I'm not getting too legalistic about that. The movie follows the campaign, Bill Clinton's campaign to be president. And then Impeachment, this is probably the newest one that we have that we're talking about today because it's like coming out right now. It's pretty fresh on the FX channel. It's 10 episodes. It's a limited miniseries, and it is about Monica Lewinsky and the impeachment scandal. So I watched it. I've watched 9 of the 10 episodes. I need to watch number 10. It is pretty good, and it is very interesting, very intriguing as well. A couple of honorable mentions. There's a movie about George W. Bush called W. And then Game Change is about the 2008 election. But it doesn't come from the perspective of Barack Obama. It comes from the perspective of John McCain, the Republican, and his vice president nominee is Sarah Palin, female. But Barack Obama is definitely wrapped into that. It's a very interesting movie. It shows how the Republicans, bungled the campaign and definitely deserve to lose. And on top of Barack Obama being a dynamic candidate and African Americans and Latinos voting, all that kind of stuff. Next up on my screen, we are almost there, is what's going on here? It's a plane, it's an airplane. 9/11, yes. The movie is called United 93 or Flight 93. It's actually 2 different movies, but pretty much the same thing. Obviously, it's referring to 9/11. Global War on Terrorism, George W. Bush. What's really cool about United 93 is that it follows the time of the flight exactly. Like from the moment of takeoff to the moment that they first hear about a possible attack in New York, to the moment that the hijackers stand up, to the moment that the plane goes down. It follows the timing exactly. So they don't take any Hollywood isms there. It's a perfect little timeline, and it shows you how quickly it all happened. It's a pretty good movie. Same theme, what do we have now? Nicolas Cage being on my screen like 5 times already.
No.
This is a movie called World Trade Center. So it's about 9/11, global war on terrorism, George W. Bush. You can just do a little bit. Is it on YouTube? I think it's on Netflix as well. So Nasia makes up a great point. I think I've said several different services: Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Disney Plus, and sometimes just on YouTube. Sometimes a lot of these things are just straight up on YouTube for free. So World Trade Center. Next on my screen is JR. This is going to represent 2 different movies. You can choose which one you want to write down, whatever. Both of them representing the war in Afghanistan. The first movie is called 12 Strong, and then the second movie is called Lone Survivor.
Look for Lone Survivor, and I could not find it.
You couldn't find it? Now, 12 Strong, we got the book here. 12 Strong comes from this book called Horse Soldiers. And actually, this is the book, and that's the movie that the Army football uniforms were modeled after. Army football game just happened this week. They lost. I don't want to talk about it. That's what this movie comes after. Lone Survivor is about a team of Navy SEALs, and it's a book here. And out of the 4 men on the team, only 1 survived. And how does he survive? Well, he has to like make his way through backwoods Afghanistan back to safety. So it's a really amazing story. I always wonder if I was the only one left alive, what would I do? Whew, this guy experienced it, and it's a book called Lone Survivor. His name is Marcus Luttrell, Navy SEAL. Now, I want to point out something else to you. Take a time to point out about actors. This is Chris Hemsworth. He is the actor in 12 Strong. He is representing an Army captain, and this is the guy that he was actually playing. That fella right there,
Was he on phone?
his name is Captain Mark Nutch. He is not as sexy as Chris Hemsworth. His muscles might not be as big as Chris Hemsworth, and his teeth have a little gap between them. But guess what? He is way cooler than Chris Hemsworth. This guy might be sexy. This guy might be Hollywood, but he's an actor. This guy actually invaded Afghanistan on horseback. Actor, real life. So even though he's not as pretty, I want you to remember this, even though he's not as pretty, he actually did the thing that this guy is just pretending to do. Let's not forget that. When we watch movies and we're like all into these actors, they are pretending to be someone who actually did those things. And even if they're not as pretty, those people are a whole lot cooler. One more for you, it's an honorable mention. American Sniper is about Chris Kyle.
I've watched
And
that.
this time, I think they did get a little bit closer. Guy on the left, that's the real guy. And then Bradley Cooper, that's the actor. That Bradley Cooper, he got pretty close, right? I know he did some weightlifting. He tried to get jacked and tried to look just like Chris Kyle. So he did a pretty good job there. All right, we are winding it down. I call this the final curtain. These last couple movies kind of expand all of American history, not just one single event. So if you got space left, you're going to jot it down, whatever. My first set here is the National Treasure Collection, National Treasure 1 and 2. National Treasure 1 is a mystery, and it surrounds the Declaration of Independence. National Treasure 2 is a mystery, and it surrounds the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. So it's fictional. It's suspenseful, but it is kind of connected to history. And then I think that makes 5 Nicolas Cage movies that I've mentioned.
He
So
must be a good actor.
Nicolas Cage must be a good actor. Next one here, this is The Butler. And this movie is about a man who was the butler for 5 different presidents. In the movie, his wife is Oprah Winfrey, so we got a big A-lister there. It is based off of this book called The Butler, A Witness to History. And if you serve 5 different presidents, you've seen a lot of history, right? You've been in the White House for a long time. This man saw Republicans, he saw Democrats, he saw scandals, he saw bad times, he saw good times. So The Butler, really good movie and a really good perspective coming from an African-American man who kind of witnessed a whole lot of history to book and movie. And finally, the ultimate American history movie is none other than Forrest Gump, right? For all the real stories I just told you about, I want you to know if you ever have a question about American history, you can just consult Forrest Gump because he follows all of U.S. history. And much like Forrest Gump, I want to say it's been a great class. It's been a great year. Thank you for your participation. I hope you learned something.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, that's the end of our class. I will take up your page so you can prove to me that you did good work. And even if we finish a little early, I will just return the time to you to do whatever you need to do. But I will take your page right now. Thank you. Those of you that wrote on 2 pages, I'm impressed. Leon, name, Thank you. Should have been a free 100. Thank you. I will give them back to you tomorrow. I'll record them and give them back to you. You asked that question. Like, I took good notes. I want to know. What you said. Ladies. Say, did I get yours?
Yes, sir.
Okay.